In this video, I'm not just going to show you what Dataview and Obsidian is and how to use it, but I'll also give you some real-life examples that you can apply to your vault, as well as some of my own personal use cases for Dataview. Alright, so there are two key elements to using this plugin. One is annotating the metadata on your notes, and the other is querying them using Dataview. My previous video was on annotating your notes using YAML, so now we're going to be querying them using Dataview. If you're coming from Notion and you are used to having a database that you can query across all your notes, then this is the missing link that makes you not want to go back to Notion. It's important to note that in this video I'll be making the assumptions that you know a good amount of how Obsidian works, such as tags, templates, aliases, YAML, etc. If you don't, feel free to go back and watch some of my previous videos on whatever topic you need to brush up on. So let's get started. Alright, so as always, here we are back at our Mastering Obsidian Vault, and the first thing we're going to do is, you guessed it, download and activate Dataview plugin. So we're going to come here to Settings, Community Plugins, and Dataview is right here at the top. Then we're going to come back here, Community Plugins, and we're going to activate Dataview. The very first thing you need to know about Dataview is that to tell Obsidian you're going to be writing a Dataview query, you first have to type in 3 backticks, followed by Dataview, enter another 3 backticks, and that's it. Now, whatever you write in between these two lines will be your Dataview query. In this part of the video, we're just going to go over the very basics of Dataview and see what output formats are possible. The Dataview plugin currently supports 3 different view types: table, list, and task. All that this means is that your end result can either look like a table, a list, or a task. So let's now go over each of the supported view types one by one. And we're going to start with lists. And the way you tell Dataview you want a list is that you just type list. So in here, I'm going to type list, and I personally capitalize it, but you don't have to, it works either way. And then you go into preview mode, and Dataview is now showing you a list of every single note inside your vault. One of the greatest features of Dataview is that it's dynamic. This means that if you change something in your vault, Dataview will automatically change. So if we come here and we type in a new note, we can call it whatever we want. So then if I search for the note we just created, you can see it's right here. Dataview is awesome. So let's continue to explore the rest of the output formats, and then we're going to go over the filtering options at our disposal. So the other view is table. So we can change this here to table, go into preview mode, and now we have a table. And when I go back to list, we no longer have that header there, and that header tells us we're on a table view. Now, in this particular case, because we have no parameters, it's perfectly fine to just switch between table and list. But once we do have parameters, it won't work. This is because a list is just what it is, right? It's just a list. Whereas a table needs to have headers. Otherwise, it's just a list. So if you want to make a table, you need to specify which headers you want to have on the table. And to specify your headers, you come back here to edit mode, and you type them out right after table. So let's say that I want author as a header. All I gotta do is type in author here. Now, Dataview is returning us a list of all notes in our vault and whatever author we assign to them via a YAML header. The vast majority of these don't have a YAML header for author, so Dataview just puts a dash on it. If you want to have more headers, simply add a comma, space, and continue adding. So if I want the headers to be author and, say, genre, all I gotta do is press a comma, genre. And now when I go on edit mode, it's going to show us a genre. And in this case, none of the notes in my vault have a genre because I haven't specified a certain genre on any YAML header of any of these notes. A very useful feature that you can do with tables is adding something similar to aliases. If you've been following my videos, you know that you can have aliases in your notes so that when you search for them, you don't have to type their file name, but rather an alias of your choosing. And if you don't know this, make sure to watch my video on all of the useful markdown syntax in Obsidian, which I'll link to right here. And just like in Obsidian, you can also have something similar to aliases in your Dataview table. And the way you achieve something similar to aliases is, let's look at this example table that we have right here. You have the file name and then you have author. And let's say in this particular example right here, you see that this is not capitalized. And let's say, your OCD is kicking in and you want to have the capital A here. But if you change this here to author with a capital A, nothing's going to work because Dataview is looking for that specific parameter. So to get around this, you leave this back as author, and you can see it's still working, and then you type as. So in this case, as author. So now I come back to our preview mode, and you can see that author is capitalized, and it's working as just the exact same way. And this works for whatever you want to put in there. So let's say you want to have creator instead of author. You can just come back here and type creator. So now when you go to preview mode, it works just the same way. We're going to be building on all of this in the next parts of the video, but right now we need to have a solid foundation. So let's move on to the third and last view, which is tasks. Now I know I'm definitely in the minority of Obsidian users that doesn't use it as a task manager. Not that Obsidian isn't capable of being a task manager, it absolutely is, but I prefer to use Todoist. And you can check my video on Todoist right here, but for those of you that use tasks in Obsidian, you can use a task Dataview query. For this to work, you need to have tasks inside your vault. And as a reminder, you create a task checkbox by pressing Command or Control plus space. So for this example, let's come over here and let's make a task view. And when we now go on preview mode, we're going to see all of the tasks in this vault. Don't pay any attention to these tasks. These are just tasks that I created to showcase different examples throughout the Mastering Obsidian series. All right, so now let's get to the fun part. This is the part where we specify to Dataview what parameters to look for and where to look for them. The first one we're going to be looking at is from. When you use from, you're telling Dataview where you want it to look for your parameters. Let's look at some examples. So let's first use tags as an example. So we're going to tell Dataview we want a list and we want it from our MOC tag. So now when we go on preview mode, we're going to have a list of our 3 mocks. Needless to say, all of this is dynamic. So if you come over here to biology and we tag it with hashtag mock and we go back to our Dataview, we can see that biology MOC has been added. All right, so now let's look at folders. We want a list as well, but at this time, instead of from a hashtag, we do from and we put in between quotes wherever we want it. So in this case, let's do a weekly journal. When we go on preview mode, we're going to have our notes in the weekly journal. You can also have subfolders. So let's see if we have a subfolder here. All right, we have one on journal. So we can come here from journal / attachments. So now if we go on preview mode, it's going to say return 0, but it's probably because it's empty. So journal, attachments, yeah, it's empty. So if we add a new note here, example, and we go back to our Dataview, as you can see, we have it here because we just added it to this subfolder. Another very useful feature is seeing a list of all incoming and outgoing links. So for incoming, we're going to put a list as well. And let's say you want all the incoming links from the history MOC. So if we come here to preview mode, we can see that we have one incoming link to that specific note. So to see outgoing links, we need to first specify outgoing. And then we need to have regular parentheses on top of the square brackets. So now if we go to preview mode, these are all the notes that are coming out of that specific note, in this case, the history mock. You can also combine any query inside the from formula. So maybe you want to combine wherever there's tags philosophy and evergreen note. And to do that, we're going to come here, we're going to delete this, and we want a list from, and we're going to put in evergreen and philosophy. So if we go to preview mode, it returns us the list of notes that belong to both the evergreen hashtag and the philosophy hashtag. So it has to have both. You can also have an or statement. So you can say list from evergreen or philosophy. So if we go to preview mode, this returns a list of notes that belong to either evergreen or philosophy. You can also exclude stuff based on your parameters. So let's say you want a list of all of your notes except the ones tagged evergreen. So we're going to go back to edit mode, and all you need to do is add a dash here. So now it's going to give us a list of all notes in our vault except the ones tagged with evergreen. And lastly, we can mix and match. So for instance, I can come here to our statement and I can say, I want a list from books and tag or MOC. So obviously this can get quite complex, and personally I never mix and match. I don't have that particular need, but it's there if you need to. Okay, so up until now we went over the from filter, and sometimes that's all you need. But in some cases you might want to filter your query further, so let's look at adding a third line, and that's where the where function comes into play. So let's say you want to do a query, but you know exactly which note you want to query. So you can do something like this. I can have a table query and I want author to be a header, and we can just see if this is done correctly. Yeah, it is. And then I can specify where, and let's pick an example. Let me come here. And let's say I specifically want Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I can just come here, table author, where file name equals Atomic Habits. So now I go on preview mode, and here we have it, Atomic Habits with author James Clear. So now let's say that maybe you want Dataview to look under a specific tag, but you want to exclude a certain note. So we can go back to edit mode, and let's get rid of this first. Table author, And now let's say that I want Dataview to specifically look under the books tag. So now we have 6 of these here. And let's now say that I actually don't want to see Atomic Habits by James Clear here. I can just say where file name is not equal Atomic Habits. So now if I go to preview mode, you can see we have the exact same list, but Atomic Habits is no longer amongst them. Let's now say you want to list only notes that are bigger than a certain size. This is something I use on my yearly review. I want to see which weekly review notes were above a certain size, which tends to be a great indicator that something either really good or really bad happened that week. So to do that, I can come here and let's actually keep that one over there. And I can put in Dataview, and I want file name as one of the headers, as well as file size. And I want Dataview to search only on hashtag weekly reviews. And I want to specify where file size is over 2000 bytes. And as you can see, this now shows a list of all weekly notes that are longer than 2000 bytes. I chose 2000 because if I use 1000, it covers almost all of them. Those of you more familiar with Obsidian and with the calendar plugin are probably already thinking, why not just use the built-in feature in the calendar that populates a date with dots depending on how much you wrote that day? If you're unsure what I'm talking about this here on the calendar plugin where you have words per dot, 250. And as a reminder, what I mean is if I come here to my weekly notes and I type in a bunch of text, you can see here on the calendar view that now we have this particular note that has a bunch of dots, each one representing 250 words. And you can change that here under the calendar if you wanted to show 400 instead of 250. It'll update accordingly. And that's totally fine, but when you've already accumulated multiple years of notes, it'll get tiresome to go back in your calendar month after month to find those notes and see if it's something that you want to look into. Using Dataview, it's a much simpler, more elegant way of achieving the same result. Another great use case of using the where function is to simply query Dataview which notes have a certain parameter. For instance, to see all notes that have Gillian Flynn as an author, you can simply type something like this. Dataview list where contains, and then the author's name in quotations. So Gillian Flynn, which is a great author, by the way. And then don't forget to close these parentheses, go into preview mode, and now we have Dark Places, which is one of her books. And the reason this is great is because let's say that you've read one of her books, such as Gone Girl, which is not a great one, by the way. Gone Girl, and right, you're doing your YAML header as usual, and you put in author, and you type Gillian Flynn, and then tags and all that, doesn't matter. But then once you close this out and you go back to the Dataview table, you see Gone Girl is now added here on our Dataview table. And the beauty of this is it's all automated and dynamic. So by the time you make your notes on any other book by whatever author you have this equation going for, the author page will get updated automatically. You can then take this one step further so that every time you want to create an author page, so for instance, I can come here and type Gillian Flynn as my author page. And then I can come here to my templates and I can build a new template and call it new author, right? I'm just giving you guys a quick example. And on this template, you could have your usual YAML header here, no point going over that. But then most importantly is you'd have a Dataview template already here waiting for you. Something like, let's actually get rid of this because it's interfering. So then in your template page, you can just have something like this, right? List where contains, and this is just a placeholder. So when you go on the view mode, you're not going to have any results, but it's here as a new author and it's going to be living under your templates. So then let's say you want to make a James Clear or whatever new author you want to create a page for, press Command P, insert template, and now you have a new author template. And once you do that, you can customize this as far as you want it. You can obviously have, a YAML header already set up and maybe some other parameters, and this could just be one more of those. And then you just change this here for James Clear, and then every single time that you add a new book that you read from this specific author, it's going to automatically show up here on your James Clear page inside your vault. And then, like I said, you can have all sorts of customization here. Your YAML header will going to live over there, and then maybe you have some sort of bullet points of stuff you want to go over for each author. You can customize this to your heart's content. And I'll cover this in a future video where I'm going to go over more elaborate workflows that involve Dataview. So lastly, we have another optional line, which will be sort. And as the name suggests, this is just to sort your results. And all I use this for is to sort my tables or lists by either ascending or descending order. So for instance, we have here a Dataview table for the weekly reviews, right? But if we change this here to say 100, it's probably going to show us a few more. So yeah, there's enough to work with, right? And I can add one more line here, call it sort, and then you have to decide which parameter do you care to sort for, and then type in ASC for ascending or DESC for descending. Now, if I come here, we sorted file size, right? So it's going to be in an ascending order. And then if you want to change this to DESC, it's going to be the opposite. And it doesn't have to be file size. So for instance, if you want file name, you just specify it here, file name, and now it's in descending order, and then just like the other one, ascending, to change it accordingly. All right, so let's now go over some other use cases, including what's on my thumbnail. And yeah, it's almost finished right here, but we're going to take it to the last few steps. So I really like to have a page showing a list of all the books that I've read with my star rating attached to it, just like you saw in the thumbnail of this video. And up until now, I was using Goodreads for this. And Goodreads, for those that don't know, is a website where you add all the books you've read and you can assign rankings and even post public reviews of different books, etc. Personally, I hardly ever review a book, and when I do, I tend to add them on Amazon, so I had no need for Goodreads other than keeping track of all the books that I've read. I like to avoid having my data on sites like Goodreads, and it's not just because of privacy concerns, but what happens if the site goes down, maybe in 2, 3, or 5, or even 10 years, and I don't have a backup of all the books I've read, nor my ratings and my thoughts on each one? Well, now you do with Dataview in Obsidian, so let's do that. So to illustrate this example, I placed 6 notes in my vault of 6 different books that I liked, and the reason you're not seeing that one here is because we crossed this one out, but if we do it in preview mode here, we have 6 different notes on 6 different books. And the notes are empty. All I have is a YAML header. So if you go to say War of Art, I have an author, tags, rating, and date. And I want to pause right here because I know some of you might be looking at these stars right here and think that it's some fancy markdown syntax, but really it isn't. These are just symbols, and I'm going to leave a link in the description for a website that you can just copy and paste it into your vault. So I'm actually going to go into that website myself. And it's right here, and it's F symbols, and you can have something like this, and then you just copy and paste it into here, and it's just more and more stars. And then you can take this one step further. You can add it as a template to your vault and automate it so that if you press Command or Control 1, it gives you 1 star, Command 2 for 2 stars, etc. And to do that, you simply download the Templater plugin. So you're going to come over here, Community Plugins, Templater, I'm going to install, and I'm going to enable it. And then all we got to do is go into Templater, and we need to tell it where our templates live. We already have a templates folder. So now we close that and we go here into our templates folder, and we're going to add a new note. We can call it 1 star. Now I can just place this here, 5 stars. And now I can just come back to Templater, and then I can assign a hotkey for it. So in here, I can go templates 5 stars, and I can assign a hotkey, customize, Command 5, and it's done. So now if I come here back to where I was, the War of Art, let's pretend I was doing it from the start, rating, Command 5, done. And you can do this for all of them, obviously. To do that, just come back and make another one for 4 stars. And this would take an extra step because it's not just this, right? You need to also have this. And then you do the exact same thing. Templater, add new hotkey, come here, 4 stars, hotkey customize, Command 4. Now if I come back to War of Art, I could just easily change this to Command 4. Templater is worthy of its own video, and I have it on my list, I just haven't gotten around to it yet, so stay subscribed to watch that in the future. So going back to the YAML header, I also have a date. So in this case, we have a random date again, May 4th, 2022. And another pro tip here is that you can add the natural language dates plugin, which is very simple, very lightweight, and it might save you a load of time. And to do that, obviously we come back here, natural language. And I know this video is getting long and we're going over a lot. I hope it's being helpful. I'm here at today, and it automatically creates a date for you. Now, personally, I don't want these dates to be their own links. So all I do is come here, natural language, and add dates as link, cross this one off. We can delete this. And when we do add today again, it just shows us the date for that. And that's all that I have on my YAML header. So if you come here to books and we go to say how to take smart notes, I have this for all of them, but that's all I have for each of them. So now we can make a new note and call it, for instance, favorite books. And we can have a data view, and you can obviously see where this is going. And we can tell data view, give us a table, author. It's working. So now we can just start excluding stuff from books. So then maybe you want to have it sorted by date, and you can do that very easily. Just type in sort date, and then depending if you want ascending or descending, and it'll update accordingly. Maybe you want to sort by rating. Very simple as well. Just come here, sort rating, and then decide ascending or descending. And you can apply this to almost anything in your vault. I have something similar for articles and for many other sources of content, and I'll get to those in some of my future videos, which will be all about more complex data view implementations. Another use case relates to vault maintenance. So one of the things that I do in my vault maintenance routine is to go over which nodes aren't tagged. And to get that with Dataview, we simply put a list. So this tells us to list every node in our vault, where length file tags equals 0. And now I can go over all of the nodes that only have a tag and tag them accordingly. I'll be making a video fully dedicated to maintaining your vault in the future, so subscribe for that as well. Alright, so I know that was a lot to cover. I hope it was helpful. Bear in mind that everything I went over today is taken straight from the official Dataview reference source, which I placed a link to in the description below. Now that we know Dataview, we can start creating some really fun projects, and I'll be covering those in future videos. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful. Let me know by hitting the thumbs up, and thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.